So, how are we feeling about the Shadow Dark Beginnings animation? Sonic fans of old, Sonic fans of new have all come together to rejoice the potential redemption of one of the best characters in the franchise, Shadow the Hedgehog. There's been some new mysteries that have unraveled with this game. One of the biggest mysteries that surrounds Sonic and Shadow Generations is this mystery fourth character bio that appeared on the Japanese website of the game. You go on the website, you have a character bio for classic Sonic, and you also have a character bio for modern Sonic. There's one for Shadow the Hedgehog, and again, like we said before, there's a mystery fourth character. Who will it be? Well, we don't really know. But after the incredible teaser that we got for Sonic and Shadow Generations, a lot of people noticed this strange and mysterious robot that appeared. Especially newer Sonic fans, you know, people who are not as accustomed to the franchise. You know, maybe they just got into it recently because of the movie. They're like, who is this robot and why is he causing destruction on the art? Well, this is none other than Emerl, or the Gizoid. So some newer fans might be asking themselves like, hey, this game is called Sonic and Shadow Generations. This game is supposed to be detailing Shadow's backstory. Who is this Emerl robot and why is he appearing in the animation, causing destruction on the art? Even veteran fans may be asking themselves that question as well. Because while it's been touched on in the past, there's never been a mention of Shadow and the Gizoid's paths crossing. To understand this, you're going to need some context. Here is Emerl, aka the Gizoid. He is a robot that first appeared in, believe it or not, a Game Boy Advance Sonic the Hedgehog fighting spin-off game. No, seriously, Sonic Battle was a 2004 Game Boy spin-off, and it's from an era when Sonic the Hedgehog stories were taken just a little bit more seriously. A lot more love and care was put into crafting more compelling narratives, as opposed to
Baldy nose hair! That's the best thing I've heard all day! I gotta remember that one.
Not that there's anything wrong with that, okay? Different eras of Sonic require different types of storytelling. It was actually necessary to release a game like Sonic Colors at the time. Our story begins 4,000 years ago when an unknown ancient civilization created a robot known as the Gizoid. Could this have been the ancients from Sonic Frontiers? That is not clear, but hey, listen, it could be a headcanon. After this robot harnessed the energy of Chaos Emeralds, he would become more powerful, which also led to the destruction of the fourth great civilization. Now, some people are saying that they could also be responsible for creating the Gizoid, but one thing is confirmed: he wiped them out. One of the main abilities of the Gizoid is actually his ability to copy other fighters' abilities. So long as he is being fed Chaos Emeralds, he will gain further sentience and mimic not only the fighting abilities of his opponents, but also the mannerisms of those around him. In particular, a lot of people in the Sonic Battle story point out that he tries to mimic Sonic as much as possible. That is because Emerl had a link with Sonic, which is one of the abilities that he has, which basically establishes a special bond with a character to control Emerl. So Sonic had a link with Emerl, so he would have undying loyalty and follow all of Sonic's commands. He also had similar links with Gerald Robotnik. And speaking of Gerald Robotnik, we now have to talk about Project Shadow. So I recently did a Project Shadow video, so let's give you a quick rundown on what it is. 50 years ago, Project Shadow was launched by the United Federation under the presence of achieving immortality. But the true intent of this project was actually to develop weapons of mass destruction. President put Gerald Robotnik at the head of this project. He had his own reasons for participating in this project because his granddaughter Maria was sick. He wanted to use the government's funding and research facility so he could find a cure for his granddaughter's terminal illness. Following some of the research discoveries, the project's goals moved on to creating the ultimate life form. First ultimate life form was the Bio-Lizard. The Bio-Lizard was a lot more primitive and required life support and eventually went out of control, so they scrapped him, and eventually Gerald made contact with the Black Arms aliens to use Black Doom's DNA to create Shadow the Hedgehog. The rumblings of the unstable Bio-Lizard was catching attention of the government, and they were looking to shut down the project. Gerald's communicating with aliens, he's creating unstable lizards. The government's like, all right, we need to shut this freak show down immediately. During Project Shadow, Gerald Robotnik actually came across the Gizoid. So prior to the completion of Shadow the Hedgehog, Gerald did discover the Gizoid, and he learned of his powers and how to establish a link with him. He learned that Emerl was able to copy abilities. Other researchers within the facility were using his abilities to learn more advanced weaponry tactics. He was getting stronger, and as the government was breathing down Gerald's neck to shut down the project, he actually offered the Gizoid to them to buy him some time to complete his research of Project Shadow. Gerald Robotnik's journal said, "The higher-ups are threatening to shut down this research facility. I had no choice but to hand them the Gizoid to buy more time for my research. I tried to be careful and commanded it to never absorb any dangerous technologies. However, I have heard that other researchers have been making the Gizoid absorb weapons. The way to cause the Gizoid to form a new link is to show it power that surpasses that of its former master. While this possesses immense danger, I I cannot risk losing Maria. And this presumably is where the Shadow Generations animation takes place. It's unclear as to when all of this actually takes place, and it looks like some retcons are on the way. Main reason being is if you look at the Sonic Battle journals of Gerald Robotnik, you actually find that the Gizoid's rampage on the Ark was allegedly before Shadow's completion, so there's ways around it, right? You could say that maybe Shadow wasn't fully complete. But regardless, I like this plotline better. But as depicted in the Shadow animation, the Gizoid absorbed too many weapons and he started to go out of control and he went on a rampage and he ended up destroying the Ark, or at least most of it. And then in the next journal, he confirms everything. He said, "My worst fears have come true. The Gizoid has absorbed enough weaponry and technology that it has started to go out of control. The resulting rampage resulted in the destruction of most of the Ark. I have deciphered the rest of the stone tablet. It says, when the Gizoid had learned all that it could, it became a god of wrath and all was destroyed. The researchers somehow managed to subdue the Gizoid and sealed it away. Luckily, it only had one Chaos Emerald installed. If it were to have all 7 emeralds installed, it may have destroyed the whole planet. The Gizoid is too much of a liability. I tried destroying its core, but nothing I did worked, and I understand too little of the technology that built him. My best hope is to try and reprogram its AI into a free-willed, emotion-based AI." After the Gizoid accident, the Black Doom communication, whatever the hell they were doing with Shadow, and the Bio Lizard going out of control, this is when the government shut down the facility. In Journal 7, right after the Gizoid's attack, it says, "I have heard that there was an accident at the research facility. Everything is gone. My own Maria's name was among the list of casualties, my beloved granddaughter. They tell me her parting words were bring hope to humanity. I have decided that the key word to activate the Gizoid's free-willed emotion-based AI program will be those very words. Bring hope to humanity, my poor, poor Maria." And thus, about 50 years later, ironically enough, Dr. Eggman discovers the Gizoid and gives him a Chaos Emerald, which once again awakens him from his dormancy. However, he's basically a lobotomized version of his former self. Shadow got a vision of this unstable power that he needed to go stop. Him and Rouge the Bat went to the lab where the Gizoid was being held by Dr. Eggman, and he was attacked by robots and eventually passed out. And then the rest of the Sonic Battle story plays out. Emerl is tossed away by Dr. Eggman, and he's actually discovered by Sonic the Hedgehog, who establishes a link with the Gizoid. Now, like I said before, the Gizoid is like a lobotomized baby at this point. So we progress through the entire story of Sonic Battle, where Emerl is getting trained by Sonic and friends. He's gaining Chaos Emeralds to slowly gain sentience. However, Shadow the Hedgehog has a connection with the Gizoid, as they're like basically adopted brothers. It's not quite clear as to whether or not he remembers those events from Space Colony Arc and his history with the Gizoid. Throughout several portions of the Sonic Battle story, Shadow is chasing down Emerl trying to stop him because he knows exactly what Emerl is, and that is a weapon of mass destruction. By the end of Sonic Battle, Sonic agrees to let Emerl go with Shadow to figure out what he is and how to free him, and how to give him free will so he'll no longer be a weapon of war, where Rouge explains to Shadow their connection, how they were both given souls by Gerald Robotnik. Well-written story, and it's crazy how they're actually connecting this to the current Sonic lore. The key word to free Emerald is bring hope to humanity, which was said by Gerald Robotnik, inspired by Maria. Shadow eventually gives Emerald the 7th Chaos Emerald and helps him free himself. However, by the end of the story with 7 Chaos Emeralds, Emerald is tricked by Dr. Eggman into trying to destroy the world, and his power is awakened, which leads to a final battle with Sonic having to destroy Emerald once and for all. And that is the end of Emerald. In case I didn't do a good job of explaining it, prior to Gerald's execution and post Maria's death, while Gerald was working on Shadow, he dug up the Gizoid, and this is what he had to say in this final journal. "A heritage of the past I dug out, Gizoid, and the ultimate life form I created by my own hands, Shadow. I equipped both weapons with heart. If all powers are not what is to be obtained for oneself, but what is to be born from hearts that yearn for someone, I believe all conflict should cease to exist. Please, if there's anyone listening to my prayers, bring hope to humanity." So that is why Emerl appears in the Sonic and Shadow Generations Dark Beginnings animation. It's fascinating to see them tap into more Project Shadow lore, just further clarifying and retelling the story of Shadow the Hedgehog because it is one of the best in the franchise. Will Emerl be playable in the campaign? Will he be a boss? Will he be featured in the campaign? That all remains to be seen. I would love to see them continue to further develop this. Hope I was able to clear some things up for you.